the treasure vault collapsed. Lin Feng directly shattered it by force, revealing the appearance of the treasure vault. Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield both stepped in. This treasure vault was huge, and there were many secret chambers. In the hall of the treasure vault, there were a large number of rocks on the ground. They looked gray and did not seem to be of any value. However, Ruler Starfield looked as if he had obtained a supreme treasure and was overjoyed. These are waste spacetime crystals. Although they are waste stones, if nurtured by the spacetime principle over time, they might become true spacetime crystals in a few epochs. Although the conversion rate is relatively low with so many waste spacetime crystals, if there's sufficient spacetime power, they can even be converted into hundreds of spacetime crystals. It's incredible. Ruler Yunku is indeed impressive. He actually collected so many waste spacetime crystals. Ruler Starfield was clearly very excited. It was usually very difficult for him to obtain even one spacetime crystal, let alone so many waste spacetime rocks. If they were recycled with sufficient spacetime power, he could even obtain hundreds of spacetime crystals. Of course, this would also take a long time. Lin Feng did not care about these waste stones at all. Hence, he did a favor and said, "If Ruler Starfield likes these waste stones, you can have them all." Sensing that Lin Feng did not care about these waste spacetime rocks at all, Ruler Starfield did not stand on ceremony and put them all away directly. There was a chance of obtaining spacetime crystals without killing origin beasts. Of course, he would not pass on it. As for Lin Feng, previously Ruler Starfield had thought that Lin Feng was similar to himself. At most, he was more mysterious and had more abilities. But during the life or death crisis just now, Lin Feng had resolved the crisis with such ease. How could Ruler Starfield not realize it after that? He did not understand Lin Feng's true depths at all. He also knew very little about how terrifying Lin Feng truly was. However, he could be certain that Lin Feng was definitely far stronger than him. Lin Feng would definitely have a chance to obtain more spacetime crystals in the future. It was normal for him to be uninterested in these waste spacetime crystals. There were many treasures in the hall. Apart from waste spacetime crystals, the most common things were some precious materials. There were even some natural treasures, and even materials for refining peak supreme treasures. There were also arrays and so on. In short, any ordinary Voidwalker who entered this place would be very excited, and treat them as the most precious things. However, these things were insignificant in Lin Feng's eyes. He simply left them all for Ruler Starfield. Of course, even if Lin Feng had no use for some of the top-notch natural treasures, he still took some. If the medium kiliocosm was damaged, these top-notch natural treasures could at least be of some use for restoring the medium kiliocosm. All the treasures in the hall had been plundered. However, Lin Feng was not satisfied. Moreover, he was almost certain that there was something more precious than the things in the hall in the treasure vault. Hence, Lin Feng looked at the secret chambers. There were still these secret chambers in the treasure vault. Clearly, there were probably some precious treasures stored in every secret chamber, treasures that even Ruler Yunku found precious. Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield both stood in front of the first secret chamber. Invisible medium kiliocosm power transformed into a huge hand that opened this secret chamber directly. Buzz. The moment the secret chamber opened, there was a sight of opulent. It was filled with shining Origin Supreme treasures. Origin Supreme treasures. These are all Origin Supreme treasures. There are at least dozens of them. Ruler Starfield's eyes lit up. These were dozens of Origin Supreme treasures. He had never seen so many Origin Supreme treasures in his entire life. In reality, not only was Ruler Starfield stunned, even Lin Feng was stunned deep down. In the past, the Origin Supreme treasures he had encountered were all individual. But now, there were actually dozens of them. This was simply daunting to the extreme. Although these Origin Supreme treasures were all ordinary Origin Supreme treasures, they were still stunning. According to our previous agreement, we'll split them equally. Lin Feng had no intention of taking them all. He cleaned up. There were a total of 84 Origin Supreme treasures. Hence, they split them equally and each received 42 Origin Supreme treasures. These were 42 Origin Supreme treasures. Even for ordinary origin supreme treasures, even if an ordinary origin supreme treasure might be suppressed to the extreme in the origin gate, it could still more or less unleash some power. At the very least, unleashing 10% of its power would not be a problem. As long as one comprehended the principle of spacetime on top of that, the suppression of the spacetime rule would not be so great. They might even be able to unleash 70 to 80% of the power. At that time, their strength would basically be about the same as the Void Overlords in the Origin Gate. Some Voidwalkers relied on ordinary Origin Supreme treasures to get back to the top step by step. Although there were very few of them, and they could even be considered rare, it was not unheard of. Hence, ordinary Origin Supreme treasures were also of some value in the Origin Gate. The two of them had obtained such a huge surprise in the first secret chamber. What about the second secret chamber? This time, Ruler Starfield and Lin Feng clearly had much higher expectations for the second secret chamber. Open. Lin Feng opened the second secret chamber without hesitation. Buzz. As soon as the second secret chamber was opened, even Lin Feng felt a trace of pressure. Even though this trace of pressure was very faint, it was indeed pressure. In the secret chamber, 20 Origin Supreme treasures lay quietly. Every one of them emitted a terrifying aura, an aura that far exceeded that of ordinary Origin Supreme treasures. Even Lin Feng felt a trace of pressure. It was obvious how powerful they were. These are powerful Origin Supreme treasures. Ruler Starfield's voice was trembling. Even though Ruler Starfield was once a famous Void Overlord in the outside world, the powerful Origin Supreme treasures he obtained could actually be counted on one hand. They had never seen such a huge collection of powerful Origin Supreme treasures. Moreover, unlike ordinary Origin Supreme treasures, although a powerful Origin Supreme treasure was a second-grade Supreme treasure, it could still unleash a relatively strong power in the Origin Gate. At the very least, if one had a preliminary comprehension of the principle of spacetime, wielding a powerful Origin Supreme treasure would give them strength almost not inferior to a Void Overlord who had not comprehended the principle of spacetime. Or rather, the strength he could unleash in the Origin Gate would not be inferior. In reality, there were not many Void Overlords in the Origin Gate because of the restrictions on peak Origin Supreme treasures. Almost every peak Origin Supreme treasure was famed, and all of them had owners. Many cultivators still wielded powerful Origin Supreme treasures. But even so, relying on their comprehension of the principle of spacetime, they were still comparable to those Void Overlords. These 20 powerful Origin Supreme treasures were very valuable, or rather, almost priceless. How many powerful Voidwalkers could these create? Even Ruler Starfield and Lin Feng, who were comparable to Void Overlords in the outside world, were breathing heavily at this moment. No matter how little greed one had, it was hard to guarantee that they would not have other thoughts when seeing so many powerful Origin Supreme treasures. For a moment, the atmosphere between Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield became tense. We'll split the 20 powerful Origin Supreme treasures equally. Chaos Ruler, how about we stick to our previous agreement? After a long while, Ruler Starfield gritted his teeth and suppressed the greed in his heart. These were 20 powerful Origin Supreme treasures. Even as a Void Overlord, it was difficult for him not to be greedy. Fortunately, Ruler Starfield had not lost his mind. He knew very well who was taking the lead now. It was not him, but Lin Feng. If Lin Feng had any designs, he would be in danger instead. Of course, Ruler Starfield might be prepared, but unless absolutely necessary, unless in a life-or-death situation, he would not use his trump card. After all, there was only one chance for such a trump card. Lin Feng smiled. In reality, the 20 powerful Origin Supreme treasures were indeed shocking, but he did not have any intention of taking them all. He still split them equally according to their previous agreement. Hence, Lin Feng obtained another 10 powerful Origin Supreme treasures. Lin Feng chose offensive and defensive Supreme treasures for these 10 powerful Origin Supreme treasures. He picked up a square Origin Supreme treasure that seemed very heavy. The space-time power in his body shook slightly and entered the Origin Supreme treasure directly. Buzz. The Origin Supreme treasure shone brightly. As expected, it was different from the space-time prison. Even under the suppression of the Origin Gate's space-time rule, it could still unleash great power. Lin Feng's previous deduction was correct. With his comprehension of the principle of spacetime at the third stage, if he obtained a peak origin supreme treasure, he might even be comparable to a powerful origin beast. Of course, this was only Lin Feng's deduction. Even though Lin Feng had obtained a powerful origin supreme treasure now, and its power was indeed extraordinary, a peak origin supreme treasure was different from a powerful origin supreme treasure. He had to obtain a peak origin supreme treasure and give it a try personally to find out. However, were there still other peak origin supreme treasures? Even ruler Yunku, who was famed back then, could not have obtained a second peak origin supreme treasure. Even if he did, why would he leave it in the treasure vault? Wouldn't it be better if he refined it for himself? At least then, he could increase his abilities when dealing with enemies. Hence, Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield looked at the third secret chamber. Their expressions were very complicated. The third secret chamber was very likely empty. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Then, his medium kiliocosm power suddenly wrapped around the door of the secret chamber and tugged hard. Rumble. The door to the secret chamber opened with a bang, and the stone door was very heavy and extraordinary. However, Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield immediately stared into the secret chamber. What they saw surprised and delighted them. Their eyes even constricted abruptly. There was an origin supreme treasure. This was an origin supreme treasure that looked a little like a lamp. It was quietly placed in the secret chamber, looking a little lonely. It looked simple and unadorned, and very plain. There was no shocking aura at all. However, the more this was the case, the more shocking it was. How could the secret chamber of the ruler Yunku store something useless? That was completely impossible. Swoosh! Lin Feng grabbed towards this origin supreme treasure. When he grabbed it, this origin supreme treasure actually suddenly spat out a sphere of flames. This sphere of flames was very terrifying. It actually burned Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm power to ashes at once. Lin Feng had seen many flames before, but he had never seen such flames. They could even incinerate the invisible medium kiliocosm power. However, how massive was Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm power? It originated from an entire world. Hence, Lin Feng used the medium kiliocosm power again, and it condensed into a huge hand almost continuously, firmly grabbing this lamp-shaped origin supreme treasure. Even though the lamp-shaped origin supreme treasure was also constantly spewing flames, burning the medium kiliocosm power to ashes, no one was controlling it after all. Hence, in terms of consumption, how could it outlast Lin Feng? Seeing this lamp-like origin supreme treasure, Ruler Starfield seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed, "This is Ruler Yunku's blood flame lamp. How can it still be here?" Blood flame lamp. Lin Feng took a closer look. The flames of this lamp-shaped supreme treasure did look a little like blood, but it only looked a little similar. In reality, they were two different things. The flames of this lamp-shaped supreme treasure made even Lin Feng's heart palpitate. He had a vague feeling that if it unleashed its full power, it could even burn his medium kiliocosm to ashes in an instant. This was a true peak origin supreme treasure, stronger than any origin supreme treasure Lin Feng had ever obtained, apart from the spacetime prison. However, these were two different types of origin supreme treasures. The blood flame lamp did not have that much spacetime power. The suppression from the spacetime rule only suppressed a portion of it, unlike the spacetime prison, which was almost completely suppressed. That's right, it's the blood flame lamp. It's rumored that back then, Ruler Yunku fought with some powerful rulers and eventually obtained a second peak origin supreme treasure, this blood flame lamp. But now, the blood flame lamp is here. Could it be that Ruler Yunku didn't refine it? It's really strange. Ruler Starfield found it very strange, but in reality, his heart was incomparably fervent. He also looked at the blood flame lamp with desire. This was a peak origin supreme treasure. Even a void overlord would be very tempted. However, seeing Lin Feng hold the blood flame lamp firmly in his hand, he knew that Lin Feng would never let it go. Although there was no rule regarding the distribution of one treasure previously, under such circumstances, unless Ruler Starfield fell out with Lin Feng and fought, he would not be able to obtain this blood flame lamp. In that case, Ruler Starfield also made a prompt decision and said in a low voice, Chaos Ruler, no matter what Ruler Yunku was thinking, he had not refined this peak origin supreme treasure. However, this is a peak origin supreme treasure, and there is only one of it. Earlier, Chaos Ruler saved my life. Then, this flaming blood lamp should naturally belong to the Chaos Ruler. Lin Feng glanced at Ruler Starfield. He was really something. He could suppress the greed in his heart so quickly, and even took the initiative to give up this peak supreme treasure. It had to be known that this was a peak origin supreme treasure, enough to drive anyone insane. However, Lin Feng had already given up all the treasures in the hall previously. Hence, he naturally would not pass on such a peak origin supreme treasure now. Moreover, compared to Ruler Starfield, he was indeed the one who needed this peak origin supreme treasure more. All right, I won't stand on ceremony then. Lin Feng accepted the blood flame lamp and even began to slowly refine it. It was relatively easy to refine an unclaimed item, but it also required time. Lin Feng only refined it briefly, before tossing it into the river of spacetime to slowly nurture it. What was in the fourth secret chamber? Lin Feng had already obtained the blood flame lamp. No matter how envious Ruler Starfield was, there was nothing he could do. Moreover, he had indeed obtained the treasures in the hall alone. But now that he thought about it, those were nothing. Now, the fourth secret chamber was even above a peak origin supreme treasure. What kind of treasure would it be? For a moment, Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield were filled with anticipation. But just as Ruler Starfield was about to open the fourth secret chamber, his communication stone suddenly shook violently. He picked up the communication stone to check it, and his expression changed drastically. Ruler Starfield, what's wrong? Lin Feng sensed that something was amiss and hurriedly asked. 5 void overlords sealed my abode, and are interrogating about the whereabouts of the Chaos Ruler. Interrogating about my whereabouts? Lin Feng frowned. Ever since he came to the Origin Gate, he only became acquainted with one Voidwalker, Ruler Starfield. He did not know other Voidwalkers at all. Why would people come to interrogate about his whereabouts now? Actually, that's not the scary part. The real trouble is the appearance of Ruler Yunku's abode. In fact, the commotion is rather huge. It'd be fine if it's far away, but this place isn't actually that far from my abode. With such a huge commotion, it's very likely that they know about it. They'll probably rush over at full force. Then, Ruler Starfield did not share Lin Feng's calm demeanor. He had stayed in the Origin Gate for more than 10 epochs. He knew very well that if these 5 Voidwalkers had actually dared to seal the abode and interrogate the other Voidwalkers about their whereabouts, they were probably already fully prepared. In other words, they were confident in dealing with Ruler Starfield and Lin Feng. The other party was definitely very strong. Once they entered the Yunku abode, the consequences would be unthinkable. Chaos Ruler, we have to think of a way, or give up and escape from here immediately. Ruler Starfield said in a low voice. Escape from here? Are you willing to part with your abode? Are you willing to part with the treasures here? Lin Feng glanced at Ruler Starfield. He did not believe that Ruler Starfield would give up so easily after planning for so long just to enter Ruler Yunku's abode. Ruler Starfield glanced at the fourth secret chamber, gritted his teeth and said, So what if I'm unwilling? Those 5 mysterious Voidwalkers are coming with such aggression. They'll probably enter the Yunku abode soon. Once we encounter them, the consequences are unpredictable. Ruler Starfield knew very well that between treasures and life, he would definitely choose life. Do you think we can hide just by leaving? If they can find this place, they can continue to find us. Besides, don't you think this Yunku abode is actually a good place for fighting? Lin Feng said calmly with a half-smile. This abode? Ruler Starfield's eyes also lit up. Indeed, the suppression of the spacetime ruler in Ruler Yunku's abode was not that strong. They were all void overlords. Why would they have to fear them? However, there were 5 of them and they also posed a considerable threat. Then hurry up and open all the secret chambers here. Even if we encounter them, we can just fight them. Lin Feng said calmly. In reality, he was not as relaxed as he appeared. When he learned that 5 Voidwalkers had specially come to find him, he knew that this battle was probably unavoidable. Then, he would play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. He would wait for the 5 Voidwalkers in the Yunku abode. Moreover, Lin Feng now had a Peak Origin Supreme Treasure. Once he refined the Peak Origin Supreme Treasure, he would have nothing to fear from those 5 Voidwalkers. Open! Lin Feng shouted and immediately opened the 4th secret chamber. As soon as he opened it and saw the treasures in the secret chamber, even Lin Feng was extremely shocked. Space-time crystals. These were all space-time crystals. Moreover, the space-time crystals were piled up like a small mountain. At a glance, there were at least hundreds of them. These hundreds of space-time crystals represented hundreds of ordinary origin beasts. As expected of the famous ruler Yunku, he had actually killed so many ordinary origin beasts. Perhaps it was also because ordinary space-time crystals were no longer of much use to ruler Yunku that he could accumulate so many space-time crystals. However, just as Lin Feng was about to divide it with ruler Starfield, he suddenly turned around and looked outside the treasure vault. Swoosh! 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 A total of 5 figures flew in through the door outside the treasure vault. Space-time crystals. So many space-time crystals. Ha ha ha! I'm rich this time. This must be the abode of ruler Yunku. I didn't expect the legend of the abode left behind by ruler Yunku to be true. Moreover, he left behind so many space-time crystals. 3 more secret chambers have been opened. There must be treasures inside as well. They were clearly divided between the Chaos Ruler and ruler Starfield. However, it doesn't matter. Since we're here today, all these treasures are ours. The people who came were none other than the 5 Voidwalkers, including ruler Xia. Ever since they sensed the commotion in the Yunku abode, they had rushed here immediately. They also had spaceships that were extremely fast. They actually arrived at the abode very quickly, and came to the treasure vault to see a huge amount of space-time crystals. For a moment, greed appeared on the faces of the 5 rulers. Clearly, they had already regarded all the treasures here as their belongings. Ruler Starfield's expression changed. The aura on his body erupted, and he immediately used his Origin Supreme Treasure to protect himself. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. He sized up the 5 of them for a while and said in a low voice, "You're the ones who sealed the abode of ruler Starfield and investigated my whereabouts? You're the Chaos Ruler, Lin Feng? That's right. Your deeds in the Celestial Pole mountain range have been exposed. TSK. I didn't expect a Voidwalker who has just entered the Origin Gate like you to actually be able to sweep through those ordinary Origin beasts in the Celestial Pole mountain range. This is because of the uniqueness of your Origin Supreme Treasure, right? Hand over the Origin Supreme Treasure on you. Perhaps then we can still let you leave." At this moment, ruler Xia did not conceal anything and said directly. Even ruler Starfield was shocked. He looked at Lin Feng in surprise. He did not expect Lin Feng to actually be able to sweep through those ordinary origin beasts at the periphery of the Celestial Pole mountain range. Lin Feng's strength was far more terrifying than ruler Starfield had imagined. At this moment, ruler Starfield was a little glad. Fortunately, he did not harbor any ill intentions. Otherwise, he would probably be dead now. However, since the other party knew that Lin Feng was so strong, why did they still dare to cause trouble? Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. He understood what the other party meant. Clearly, the other party had knowledge of his abilities. In reality, Lin Feng's current abilities did have some fatal flaws or weaknesses. For example, he had to use the medium kiliocosm to envelop his opponent. Then, he would use the space-time prison. However, during this process, if an especially powerful force or Origin Supreme Treasure instantly tore apart his medium kiliocosm, Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm would not be able to suppress his enemy. At that time, Lin Feng's space-time prison would be useless. As for the medium kiliocosm, it would be even more useless. No matter how strong his medium kiliocosm was, it was actually only on par with ordinary origin beasts. How could it deal with a powerful peak Origin Supreme Treasure? Perhaps this was why the 5 of them were so confident. They had come prepared. For a moment, the situation was a little tense. Lin Feng knew that if he was outside, or before, it might be the greatest crisis he had encountered. However, the current Lin Feng was no longer the same as before. In the end, they were still a step too late. Lin Feng had obtained a peak origin supreme treasure, the Blood Flame Lamp. Ruler Starfield, do you want a peak origin supreme treasure? Lin Feng suddenly asked Ruler Starfield beside him. Ha! Ruler Starfield was still a little stunned and confused. The 5 Voidwalkers all have peak origin supreme treasures. Help me kill them and I'll give you a peak origin supreme treasure. How about that? Lin Feng's words echoed in the entire treasure vault. Not only could Ruler Starfield hear them, the 5 Voidwalkers opposite him also heard them very clearly. What arrogance! They want to kill us? How absurd. Haha. Looks like we're going to have a pleasant surprise this time. Who'd expect to find the abode of Ruler Cloud wither by chance while hunting down the Chaos Ruler? We've really struck it rich this time. Traces of aura began to emanate from the bodies of the 5 Voidwalkers led by Ruler Xia. Moreover, they activated their origin supreme treasures, vaguely forming a terrifying pressure that enveloped Lin Feng. However, on the other hand, they had no intention of attacking Ruler Starfield at all. The meaning was actually very obvious. As long as Ruler Starfield did not interfere, they would not attack Ruler Starfield. At the very least, they would not attack Ruler Starfield for the time being. As for what happened after this, that was for the future. But now, at least they would not attack. This was undoubtedly to turn Ruler Starfield and Lin Feng against each other. Ruler Starfield glanced at Lin Feng, the secret chamber behind him, then at Ruler Xia and the other 4 Voidwalkers. He was in a dilemma. This was indeed a difficult choice. Once he chose to resist the 5 Voidwalkers with Lin Feng, it was very likely that he would fall. Ruler Starfield's senses absolutely could not be wrong. Ruler Xia and the other 5 Voidwalkers really had the strength to kill him and Lin Feng. Although he felt deeply conflicted, in reality, not much time had passed. It's a deal. Suddenly, Ruler Starfield attacked. Astral light flickered all over his body, and a terrifying power erupted in an instant. He used his origin supreme treasure with full force and suddenly blasted towards the nearest Voidwalker. Humph. Since you want to die with the Chaos Ruler, we'll fulfill your wish. Ruler Xia snorted coldly. Then, the 5 of them seemed to have joined forces and formed a staged array. No matter how Ruler Starfield's attack landed, it shattered instantly like a bubble without causing any damage. It immediately enveloped Ruler Starfield as well. Clearly, they were already prepared. They were not really ignoring Ruler Starfield. Lin Feng had been standing in the hall, allowing the 5 Voidwalkers to join forces to suppress him. Seeing that Ruler Starfield had also attacked and chosen his side, Lin Feng was still in the mood to smile. Ruler Starfield, you did not disappoint me. Ruler Starfield was under immense pressure at this moment. He smiled weakly and said, "What's the use of saying all this now? These 5 people are too strong. They can probably fight even powerful origin beasts. This time we're probably doomed." Although Ruler Starfield's tone was downcast, as if he was very despondent, there was no despair in his expression. Clearly, he still had a trump card and was very confident in it. Previously, Lin Feng had sensed a trace of threat from the body of Ruler Starfield. That was probably Ruler Starfield's trump card. However, at the same time, Lin Feng had also sensed traces of threat from these 5 people. Clearly, these 5 people also had trump cards. If both sides had trump cards, once they were used, according to Lin Feng's senses, the 5 of them would probably still have the advantage. Lin Feng was waiting for the other party's trump card. He also wanted to see what these 5 people had prepared for him. How terrifying was the combined attack of 5 people with Origin Supreme treasures. Came from all directions. Even Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield felt a terrifying pressure that was almost suffocating. Even Lin Feng knew very well that his medium kiliocosm alone could not withstand it. Space-time prison. With a yell, Lin Feng unleashed the space-time prison. If it were anywhere else, he would naturally be unable to use the space-time prison. It would be suppressed to the extreme by the space-time rule, and would be completely powerless. However, things were different in Ruler Cloud Wither's abode. The suppression of the spacetime rule here was actually much weaker. Even spacetime power could be mobilized a little, let alone the spacetime prison. Although the spacetime prison could be used, it could not suppress these voidwalkers. However, the defense of the spacetime prison was rather good. He protected his body, and the spacetime power distorted continuously. A total of 3 peak origin supreme treasures smashed hard into Lin Feng's spacetime prison. Boom! Unexpectedly, Lin Feng did not move at all. It had to be known that his spacetime prison was still far from metamorphosis. According to Lin Feng's categorization, the spacetime prison had actually not reached the level of a peak origin supreme treasure yet. But now, the spacetime prison could actually remain as still as a mountain against the bombardment of 3 peak origin supreme treasures. How terrifying was this? It was simply unimaginable. Lin Feng had previously guessed that the spacetime prison was definitely not an ordinary origin supreme treasure. However, it was just a guess. When the spacetime prison had yet to undergo metamorphosis, Lin Feng had always thought that it might be inferior to a peak origin supreme treasure. Or rather, it had yet to reach the level of a peak origin supreme treasure. But what was happening now? Just its defense alone could easily withstand the bombardment of 3 peak origin supreme treasures. This was simply incredible. Or rather, the spacetime prison was actually already comparable to a peak origin supreme treasure. It was already a peak origin supreme treasure, but Lin Feng had never realized this. If that was really the case, since Lin Feng could vaguely sense that the spacetime prison was about to undergo metamorphosis, what level would the spacetime prison reach once it underwent metamorphosis? Had it surpassed a peak origin supreme treasure? Lin Feng did not know. In reality, Lin Feng was not the only one who did not know. Even most of the Void Overlords probably did not know. They did not know what other treasures were above peak origin supreme treasures. However, although they did not know, they could also sense that the spacetime prison was not simple. Haha, this peak origin supreme treasure is not bad. I'll take it. A sharp glint appeared in Ruler Xia's eyes. He had taken an interest in the spacetime prison. How could a treasure that could withstand 3 peak origin supreme treasures be ordinary? Moreover, from his perspective, Lin Feng was just an ordinary voidwalker. How could Lin Feng be worthy of it? Ruler Xia was a void overlord who had already comprehended the principle of spacetime. His potential was infinite. However, while Lin Feng could withstand the bombardment of 3 peak origin supreme treasures, it would be a little difficult for Ruler Starfield. He was facing 2 voidwalkers. Facing the attacks of 2 voidwalkers, Ruler Starfield appeared to be in imminent danger. After only 2 or 3 attacks, Ruler Starfield was almost in danger. If Lin Feng did not rescue him, Ruler Starfield would be doomed. However, Lin Feng did not rescue him, and Ruler Starfield did not call for help. Clearly, Ruler Starfield still had strength left. It should be the trump card hidden in his body, that mysterious and powerful force. Damn it, you forced me to do this. It was originally a method prepared for the hidden dangers in Ruler Cloud Wither's abode. But from the looks of it, it's best used for dealing with you. Spacetime Sword Aura. Kill! As Ruler Starfield shouted, a violent sword aura suddenly erupted from its body. The sword aura soared into the sky, as if it could tear through all obstacles. Even Lin Feng's heart palpitated slightly. This is bad. It's a sword aura from the Spacetime Swordmaster. Ruler Starfield is just an ordinary voidwalker. How can he possess a sword aura from the Spacetime Swordmaster? Seeing this terrifying sword aura, the expressions of Ruler Xia and the other 5 voidwalkers all changed drastically. The Spacetime Swordmaster. This name was well known in the Origin Gate. Very few people had not heard of this name. With a supreme sword and supreme sword principle, in conjunction with a profound understanding of the principle of spacetime, the Spacetime Swordmaster was famed for still being able to unleash terrifying sword auras under the suppression of the spacetime rule. In the entire Origin Gate, the Spacetime Swordmaster was actually one of the true hegemons. Hence, he was also crowned with the supreme title of Swordmaster. Just a single beam of sword aura was enough to make one's hair stand on end. It was enough to show how terrifying it was. Even Lin Feng was extremely shocked when Ruler Starfield unleashed this sword aura. He had never seen such a terrifying sword aura. Those so-called swordsmen and expert swordsmen in the void were probably not even qualified to hold a sword in front of this sword aura. Lin Feng had never thought that the principle of the sword could unleash such terrifying power. In particular, this was the Origin Gate. Origin's supreme treasures were suppressed, yet the power of this sword aura alone had already infinitely approached the strength of a powerful Origin beast. This was just one sword aura. Moreover, the sword aura contained a trace of spacetime power. Lin Feng saw it very clearly. If the original owner unleashed it, a sword aura would probably be able to instantly kill a powerful Origin beast. This was a true hegemon. Lin Feng's heart palpitated. Ruler Xia and the other 5 Voidwalkers were even more panicked. They could not withstand a sword aura from the spacetime swordmaster. At this thought, Ruler Xia shouted, "Stop holding back! Spacetime confinement!" As Ruler Xia shouted, he immediately took out a strange stone. The stone emitted a glowing light. As he activated it, a terrifying spacetime power immediately swept over. The confining force spread wildly. The surrounding spacetime was completely confined. At this moment, even Lin Feng was a little stunned. This was the Origin Gate, yet there was actually such a terrifying spacetime power that could confine spacetime. What did confining spacetime mean? This meant that even if Lin Feng had the Void Vessel, he could no longer warp and leave. Clearly, the 5 Voidwalkers were deliberately targeting Lin Feng. Moreover, the spacetime confinement had completely confined the sword aura of the spacetime swordmaster. Could actually confine such a terrifying sword aura. A spacetime confinement stone. You actually managed to buy a spacetime confinement stone. Ruler Starfield's eyes widened in disbelief. The spacetime confinement stone confined all spacetime power. Coupled with the suppression of the spacetime rule in the Origin Gate, it was simply even more terrifying. It could be considered the highest confinement technique of the Origin Gate. Once the spacetime confinement stone was activated, any force or treasure with spacetime power would lose its effect. This was the case for Lin Feng's spacetime prison. Originally, it could unleash a little effect in Yunku Abode. However, as the spacetime confinement stone was used, his spacetime prison was also firmly confined and could not unleash its proper effect at all. Lin Feng simply waved his hand and stored the spacetime prison into his internal medium kiliacosm. Clearly, these people were rather well prepared to target him. They completely restrained Lin Feng, preventing Lin Feng from even having the chance to use the Void Vessel to escape. This time, a trace of panic appeared on Ruler Starfield's face. He had one spacetime sword aura, and this was a sword aura that he had spent a huge price to purchase. If he could purchase 2, 3, or even dozens of them, then, no matter how strong the spacetime confinement stone was, it could still be broken. However, he only had one spacetime sword aura. Against the spacetime confinement stone, it was completely useless, and was firmly countered instead. Now that he had lost the spacetime sword aura, what else could Ruler Starfield do when facing 5 powerful Voidwalkers? Ruler Xia's face was dark. He smiled sinisterly and said, "There's nothing you can do now, right? Humph, we were sufficiently prepared to deal with you. Now die!" With a shout from Ruler Xia, immediately, the 5 Voidwalkers attacked together and unleashed 5 Peak Origin Supreme Treasures, smashing them towards Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield. With the 5 of them joining forces, anyone with strength below a powerful Origin beast probably would not be able to withstand it. Only death awaited them. Lin Feng looked at the 5 Origin Supreme Treasures that whistled over. They crushed over majestically with a terrifying aura. If he had the spacetime prison, he could still resist it. But now, under the spacetime confinement stone, the spacetime prison was firmly countered and could not be used at all. Even the Void Vessel could not warp. There was no way to escape and no way to resist. In that case, he could only fight head-on. Now, Lin Feng felt lucky that he had entered the Yunku Abode a step earlier, and was very lucky to have found a Peak Origin Supreme Treasure. Otherwise, he would really be a little helpless in such a situation. As for now, a trace of coldness flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. Blood flame lamp. As Lin Feng growled, a lamp-shaped supreme treasure slowly flew out of his body. At the same time, with the activation of Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm power, the blood flame lamp suddenly spewed out a terrifying scarlet fire. Boom! Fire erupted, appearing ready to incinerate everything. Even Ruler Starfield, Ruler Xia, and the others, who were all void overlords, felt a lethal threat now. In fact, the power unleashed by the blood flame lamp at this moment was more than 100 times stronger than when Lin Feng first discovered it. How is this possible? This is the strength of a powerful void walker. No, impossible. A peak origin supreme treasure. That's just a peak origin supreme treasure. How can he unleash the strength of a powerful void walker? Ruler Xia could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought. In reality, Ruler Starfield did not understand it either. However, he seemed to have thought of something all of a sudden. His mind rumbled and went blank. He and Lin Feng had discovered the blood flame lamp together. Ruler Starfield knew the power of the blood flame lamp very well. It was actually just a peak origin supreme treasure. He and the 5 Voidwalkers, including Ruler Xia, all had such a peak origin supreme treasure. All void overlords had peak origin supreme treasures. Yet Lin Feng could unleash the strength of a powerful Voidwalker. What did this mean? There was only one possibility. Lin Feng had comprehended the principle of spacetime. Moreover, his principle of spacetime had reached a rather profound level. At the very least, he should be able to crush Ruler Xia. After all, Ruler Xia had also comprehended the principle of spacetime. According to Lin Feng's hypothesis, he had comprehended the principle of spacetime to the 3rd stage. Hence, combined with a peak origin supreme treasure, the blood flame lamp, he could unleash strength comparable to a powerful origin beast. As for Ruler Xia, he only had some comprehension of the principle of spacetime, and had just comprehended it, which was equivalent to the 2nd stage. He only infinitely approached the level of a powerful Voidwalker. A single step short now made the difference between living and dying. Boom! The power erupting from the blood flame lamp far exceeded Lin Feng's imagination. Only at this moment did Lin Feng truly understand the terror of a peak origin supreme treasure. This eruption enveloped the 5 Voidwalkers, including Ruler Xia. With his comprehension of the principle of spacetime at the 3rd stage, he could also unleash most of the power of a peak origin supreme treasure. Hence, Lin Feng had reached the level comparable to a powerful origin beast. Against the 5 Voidwalkers, he crushed them completely. Even though the spacetime confinement stone still had an impact on him, his blood flame lamp broke free by force and crushed towards the 5 Voidwalkers majestically. Facing such a terrifying power, even if Ruler Xia could unleash strength infinitely close to a powerful origin beast, it was useless. He was just one step away. This step was a natural chasm that was very difficult to cross. But this step also meant the difference between life and death. As the scarlet flames spread in the void, the 5 Voidwalkers cried out in agony and were burned to ashes. Then, everything fell silent, dead. The 5 dignified void overlords were all dead, leaving only about 10 origin supreme treasures. 5 of them were even peak origin supreme treasures. Lin Feng reached out and grabbed all these origin supreme treasures. Oh, not bad. The peak origin supreme treasures of these 5 people are all not bad. Unfortunately, their comprehension of the principle of spacetime is too low. Only one of them has comprehended the principle of spacetime, but he's still very lacking. Lin Feng shook his head. These 5 were all peak origin supreme treasures. All of them were very impressive and had peerless power. In the void outside, these people would also be famed void overlords. However, in the origin gate, the level of comprehension of the principle of spacetime was very important. It even directly determined the level of strength. Everyone was a void overlord. Strength was not just differentiated by distinction between peak origin supreme treasures, but more importantly, comprehension of the principle of spacetime. Clearly, only one of the 5 void overlords had comprehended the principle of spacetime. However, he was only at the 2nd stage or even just reached the 2nd stage. He was still a bit far from the 3rd stage, so he was naturally far from Lin Feng's match. All of this felt prolonged, but in reality it only took 2 or 3 breaths. could be considered over very fast, and everything was settled. Battles between Voidwalkers were not that troublesome. The stronger side could basically win quickly and kill their opponents. Now, the 5 Void Overlords had all been killed by Lin Feng alone. Even Ruler Starfield beside him was still a bit stunned, and he was shocked to the extreme. Before, he was not even confident in defeating one of the Void Overlords. But as for Lin Feng, he had fought 1 against 5 in an extremely short period of time, and killed the 5 Void Overlords in a domineering manner. This level of strength shocked Ruler Starfield. Only at this moment did he come to a realization. How profound was Lin Feng's comprehension of the principle of spacetime? At the very least, he must have comprehended the principle of spacetime, and to a very profound level. In other words, if Lin Feng was not lying, why did Lin Feng, who had just arrived at the origin gate, have such a profound grasp of the principle of spacetime? There could only be one reason, and it was that Lin Feng had actually already comprehended the principle of spacetime in the void outside. At this thought, Ruler Starfield found it even more unbelievable. Could the principle of spacetime also be comprehended in the void? He had almost never heard of it. Even those peak Voidwalkers, who could be considered hegemons among the origin gate, found it impossible to comprehend the principle of spacetime in the void. It was only after entering the origin gate, and relying on the special environment of the origin gate and a large amount of spacetime crystals, that they could comprehend the principle of spacetime. Comprehending the principle of spacetime in the void was almost unimaginable. However, Lin Feng had done it. Even Ruler Starfield could tell that Lin Feng indeed knew nothing about the situation in the origin gate back then. It was very likely that he had really entered the origin gate from the void outside. On careful thought, if he had really comprehended the principle of spacetime in the void, it would be very daunting. At the very least, Lin Feng's potential was unimaginable. Fortunately, Ruler Starfield had picked Lin Feng's side. If he had hesitated for even a moment just now, or even left directly, Lin Feng definitely would not have let him off. Faced with a terrifying Voidwalker comparable to a powerful origin beast, and with such a deep comprehension of the principle of spacetime, Ruler Starfield knew very well that it was useless no matter where he fled. Ruler Starfield, here are 5 peak origin supreme treasures. I've said before that I'll give you a peak origin supreme treasure. Choose for yourself. Lin Feng said to the still stunned Ruler Starfield. What? You're really giving it to me? Ruler Starfield was very surprised. That was a peak origin supreme treasure. Even if Lin Feng suddenly obtained 5 peak origin supreme treasures, no one would complain about having too many origin supreme treasures. Now, Lin Feng actually wanted to give him one. This could not help but make Ruler Starfield feel a little surreal, and even a little flattered. If it were anyone else, Ruler Starfield would be overjoyed as long as they didn't kill him. After all, with such a huge profit, it would be a piece of cake for Lin Feng to kill him now. Moreover, Ruler Starfield had already used his trump card. He was powerless to resist now. It would not even take much effort for Lin Feng to kill him. Seeing that Ruler Starfield seemed to have some reservations, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Since I said I'll give it to you, I'll naturally give it to you. You don't have to worry, Ruler Starfield. After becoming acquainted with me for some time, you naturally understand my character." Lin Feng did not say much, but for anyone who had been acquainted with him for a long time, as long as they did not take the initiative to betray him or scheme against him, Lin Feng would not hesitate to offer some benefits. Ruler Starfield might be a little cautious, but up until now, he had chosen Lin Feng's side at the most critical moment. Even though Ruler Starfield's strength was insignificant, Lin Feng was still very satisfied with Ruler Starfield. A peak origin supreme treasure might be very precious, but Lin Feng really did not take it too seriously. Then I won't decline. I choose this peak origin supreme treasure. Ruler Starfield composed himself and chose a peak origin supreme treasure. This was a peak origin supreme treasure with both offensive and defensive functions. It was very useful to the current Ruler Starfield. Lin Feng nodded to indicate agreement. Then, he stored the 4 peak origin supreme treasures and more than 10 ordinary origin supreme treasures into his internal medium kiliocosm. Now, Lin Feng already had 55 ordinary origin supreme treasures, 10 powerful origin supreme treasures, and 5 peak origin supreme treasures. Even in the eyes of those peak voidwalkers, such gains could be considered impressive. These were not all the gains from Yunku abode yet. At the very least, there were still so many spacetime crystals. Clang. There were hundreds of spacetime crystals in the 4th secret chamber. Although they were all ordinary spacetime crystals, they were indeed spacetime crystals and were very precious. Back in the Celestial Pole Mountain Range, Lin Feng had almost swept through the periphery of the Celestial Pole Mountain Range and only obtained a few dozen ordinary spacetime crystals. But now, there were hundreds of spacetime crystals in the secret chamber. It was unbelievable. Even if ordinary spacetime crystals might not have much of an effect on Lin Feng now, he definitely would not mind having more spacetime crystals. After all, spacetime crystals were the hard currency in the Origin Gate and had considerable purchasing power. Of course, Lin Feng had no intention of taking them all himself. The two of them each obtained about 300 spacetime crystals, which could be considered a huge gain. Next was the 5th secret chamber. Lin Feng was filled with anticipation for the 5th secret chamber. According to the order of the treasures stored in the secret chamber, he was vaguely looking forward to the treasures in the 5th secret chamber. He even had some guesses. Boom! The 5th secret chamber was opened. Lin Feng looked into the secret chamber immediately. With a sweep of his mental power, Lin Feng saw the situation in the secret chamber clearly, and at a glance. There's more than one powerful spacetime crystal. Lin Feng was overjoyed. What he urgently needed now was powerful spacetime crystals. Only powerful spacetime crystals could be of help to his current principle of spacetime. In the 5th secret chamber, there were a total of 11 powerful spacetime crystals. What did this mean? Lin Feng knew very well. These 11 powerful spacetime crystals meant that ruler Yunku had once killed 11 powerful origin beasts. Every powerful origin beast was a powerful entity that dominated a region. In the Origin Gate, the true hegemons were not voidwalkers or cultivators, but those origin beasts. Even if they were at the same level, the origin beasts actually had some advantages. Defeating the origin beasts was not too difficult, but killing them was very difficult. If not for the fact that Lin Feng had methods to counter the origin beasts with his strength, it would actually be relatively difficult for him to even kill an ordinary origin beast alone. Of course, that was in the past. As for now, forget about ordinary origin beasts. Lin Feng could even attempt to kill powerful origin beasts. The 11 powerful spacetime crystals here also meant that ruler Yunku was really strong back then, at least far stronger than ordinary powerful origin beasts. The remaining 11 powerful spacetime crystals here did not just mean that ruler Yunku had only killed 11 powerful origin beasts. It was even more likely that ruler Yunku had killed more powerful origin beasts, but only 11 powerful spacetime crystals were left behind. However, why didn't ruler Yunku use these 11 powerful spacetime crystals back then? Or could it be that, with ruler Yunku's comprehension of the principle of spacetime comprehended, just powerful spacetime crystals no longer had much of an effect? No matter what, the 11 powerful spacetime crystals were already in front of Lin Feng and ruler Starfield. According to their previous agreement, they would each take half. Only if there was only one powerful spacetime crystal would it belong to Lin Feng. However, since there were 11 now, they would each take half. There's one extra. I won't stand on ceremony. I'll take 6 powerful spacetime crystals. Ruler Starfield, you can take 5. Lin Feng divided 5 powerful spacetime crystals for ruler Starfield. Ruler Starfield frowned, even though there was also a look of desire in his eyes. These were powerful spacetime crystals, but there was a subtle look of determination in his eyes. It's not appropriate. Huh? Ruler Starfield thinks that the distribution is inappropriate. Lin Feng raised his brows and looked at ruler Starfield. Ruler Starfield gritted his teeth and said, "Of course it's inappropriate. Actually, these powerful spacetime crystals are not of much use to me for the time being. I haven't even comprehended the principle of spacetime, and using powerful spacetime crystals is a huge waste. However, the Chaos Ruler is different. You have already comprehended the principle of spacetime. Only powerful spacetime crystals can be of use to Chaos Ruler. Hence, I won't take these 5 powerful spacetime crystals. I'll give them all to the Chaos Ruler." As soon as he finished speaking, Ruler Starfield seemed to relax all of a sudden, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Lin Feng stared intently at Ruler Starfield for a long time before saying slowly, "Ruler Starfield, you don't have to feel burdened. What you deserve is naturally yours." "No, I've already made up my mind. Moreover, I'm already very satisfied that the Chaos Ruler could give me a peak origin supreme treasure previously. I can't just demand things without giving in return. These powerful spacetime crystals are clearly more important to the Chaos Ruler. Naturally, I should give them to the Chaos Ruler." Lin Feng looked at Ruler Starfield for a long while. Finally, he nodded and said, "All right, since Ruler Starfield insists, I won't stand on ceremony." Lin Feng did not decline anymore. He did value these powerful spacetime crystals very much. The actions of Ruler Starfield undoubtedly made Lin Feng think more highly of Ruler Starfield. He knew how to make trade-offs. This person was someone worth befriending. Lin Feng put away the 11 powerful spacetime crystals, but he did not leave immediately. Instead, he looked at the 6th secret chamber. There were a total of 6 secret chambers in the entire hall of the secret chambers. According to the value of the treasures stored by Ruler Yunku, each one should be more precious than the last. The 5th secret chamber already contained powerful spacetime crystals. Then what would there be in this 6th secret chamber? Could it be a treasure more precious than powerful spacetime crystals? Or rather, in the eyes of Ruler Yunku, the treasure in the 6th secret chamber was even more precious than powerful spacetime crystals. Be it Lin Feng or Ruler Starfield, both were filled with anticipation for the 6th secret chamber. "Open!" Lin Feng reached out and waved his hand, immediately opening the 6th secret chamber. As the door to the 6th secret chamber opened, Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield looked inside. This secret chamber was huge, but the entire secret chamber was empty. There was only a palm-sized fragment at the far end. It looked a little like some kind of treasure fragment. An Origin Supreme treasure fragment? Lin Feng was a little bewildered. There was even a Peak Origin Supreme treasure in the treasure vault, and Lin Feng had obtained it. Then what was this fragment worth? If it was just a fragment of a Peak Origin Supreme treasure, why would Ruler Yunku place it in the 6th secret chamber so seriously? If Ruler Yunku took it so seriously, this was definitely not a fragment of an ordinary Origin Supreme treasure. Something's wrong. There's a very, very faint aura of origin on it, but something doesn't seem right. Lin Feng made a grabbing motion with his hand. The medium Kiliacosm power tried to grab the fragment, but it seemed to have no effect on it. He could not grab this fragment at all. What's going on? Lin Feng could not grab this fragment. Even Ruler Starfield gave a try, but he could not grab this fragment either. It was as if this fragment could block any energy. Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield looked at each other and saw each other's surprise. Could it be? Suddenly, Ruler Starfield seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. "Huh? Ruler Starfield, did you think of anything?" Lin Feng saw Ruler Starfield's expression change slightly. He probably knew something. Perhaps he knew what this fragment was? Ruler Starfield took a deep breath. He scanned this fragment with his mental power and vaguely sensed an aura like the Origin Supreme treasure, but it was very different from Origin Supreme treasures. It seemed to be very different from both ordinary Origin Supreme treasures and Peak Origin Supreme treasures. Seeing this, Ruler Starfield could not help but think of a possibility. "Hence," he replied directly, "I'm just making a guess, but it's not necessarily correct. Actually, there's another kind of Origin Supreme treasure in the Origin Gate above Peak Origin Supreme treasures. It's the Eternal Supreme Treasure. It's rumored that an Eternal Supreme Treasure contains the mysteries of eternity. No energy or rule can leave any mark on it, nor have any effect on it. It's a pity that after so many years, there are only fragments of the Eternal Supreme Treasure in the Origin Gate. No one has ever seen a complete Eternal Supreme Treasure. Perhaps the complete Eternal Supreme Treasure can only be found in the legendary Origin realm." Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. This was a mystery he had never heard of. Eternal Supreme Treasure? Just from the name, one could tell that it was very extraordinary, above peak origin supreme treasures. If it's claimed that the eternal supreme treasure fragment could not be carried by any energy, and no rule and power could leave a mark on it, Lin Feng would give it a try. He used the medium kiliocosm power and pressed down hard on the fragment. However, no matter how he pressed, it seemed to be useless. This fragment did not even show any miraculous behavior. It just lay quietly in Lin Feng's grip. River of space-time. Lin Feng simply threw the fragment into his internal medium kiliocosm and mobilized the river of space-time. The river of space-time descended and enveloped the fragment. However, no matter how the space-time power changed, be it stopping, accelerating, or even reversing time, it was useless. The fragment remained itself and showed no special reaction, as if it was a most ordinary fragment. However, the more this was the case, the more miraculous this fragment appeared. What kind of thing could not change at all in space-time? This was very abnormal in itself. This fragment might really be a fragment of an eternal supreme treasure. Lin Feng muttered softly. He had already tried all kinds of methods, but none of them could cause any damage to this fragment. It seemed to be unimaginably durable. However, there were no rules for comprehension in it. It seemed completely impossible to comprehend. As for refining it, this was not even a treasure, just a fragment. How could one refine it? By the way, what's the use of an eternal supreme treasure fragment? Lin Feng opened his eyes again and asked Ruler Starfield. Eternal supreme treasure? I don't know what it can do either, but it seems like fragments of eternal supreme treasures are very highly valued by those peak voidwalkers. For example, Ruler Yunku also obtained such an eternal supreme treasure fragment. Many voidwalkers speculate that the truly precious aspect of the eternal supreme treasure fragment is its material, because the material of the eternal supreme treasure fragment is very likely eternal matter. Eternal matter? Lin Feng almost could not believe it. Does eternal matter exist? At Lin Feng's level, he had already comprehended the principle of spacetime. He naturally knew what eternal meant. He also knew which direction to go in order to achieve eternity. True eternity was not power, but realm. It was not any matter either. Only by transcending spacetime could one attain eternity. This actually had nothing to do with strength. It had even less to do with matter. Hence, he did not believe that eternal matter existed. However, the origin gate was filled with all kinds of mysteries to begin with. Lin Feng did not believe that eternal matter really existed, but after some special conversion of the principle of spacetime, it was very likely that some substances infinitely close to eternity would appear. Perhaps the eternal supreme treasure was forged from such substances that were infinitely close to eternal. Of course, Lin Feng did not know the exact situation either. He was just guessing. Eternity was the highest mystery of cultivation. Even Lin Feng only knew a rough direction. The secret of eternity was far from what the current Lin Feng could pry into. He was still very far from eternity. I'll keep this eternal supreme treasure fragment. Of course. Ruler Starfield nodded. In reality, the eternal supreme treasure fragment might sound intimidating, but it was not of direct help to cultivators. Perhaps those peak voidwalkers had studied some secrets of eternal supreme treasure fragments, but they only studied them. No one came up with any results. Hence, Ruler Starfield had no objections about giving the eternal supreme treasure fragment to Lin Feng at all. The two of them plundered the treasure vault. There was nothing else left. Then, the two of them carefully plundered the entire abode, confirming that there was nothing else of much value. Hence, the two of them agreed to leave the Yunku abode. Although in the end, the two of them still could not find the reason behind Ruler Yunku's death. No matter what, the two of them had gained a lot this time. Once they digested all their gains this time, their strength would undoubtedly improve greatly. Ruler Starfield sealed the Yunku's abode, causing it to disappear completely. Even if someone found the Yunku's abode in the future, it would be meaningless. Then, the two of them returned to Ruler Starfield's mountain. They each entered seclusion to convert all their gains this time into strength as soon as possible. In the secret chamber, Lin Feng was tabulating his gains this time. This time, Lin Feng obtained 55 ordinary origin supreme treasures, 10 powerful origin supreme treasures, 5 peak origin supreme treasures, and an unknown eternal supreme treasure fragment. As for the spacetime crystals, he obtained 300 ordinary spacetime crystals and 11 powerful spacetime crystals. All these gains even exceeded Lin Feng's expectations. The gains this time could be considered huge. Lin Feng also had to plan carefully how to convert all his gains this time into strength. Otherwise, no matter how great his gains were, they would be in vain. Out of the 5 peak origin supreme treasures, apart from the blood flame lamp, I want to refine all remaining 4. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. The first thing he had to do was to refine the 4 peak origin supreme treasures. He even had to refine the blood flame lamp again. In the origin gate, basically everyone was a void overlord. They all wielded peak origin supreme treasures. In reality, what determined strength was their comprehension of the principle of spacetime. Of course, the power of peak origin supreme treasures also had a certain impact. Ordinary peak voidwalkers did not have any obvious weaknesses, because they possessed a few peak origin supreme treasures. It was the same for Lin Feng now. He was improving towards becoming a peak voidwalker. Once he refined the 4 peak origin supreme treasures, they would be compatible with his 3rd stage of the principle of spacetime. Even if he was still not a match for those top-notch peak voidwalkers, he was more or less comparable to ordinary peak voidwalkers. Hence, Lin Feng spent a long time to begin refining a total of 5 peak origin supreme treasures, including the blood flame lamp. These 5 peak origin supreme treasures were the blood flame lamp, the myriad layered pagoda, the 9 layered gloves, the levitating war boots, and the fire god's cape. There were a total of 5 peak origin supreme treasures. Coincidentally, the functions of these origin supreme treasures were not repeated. In reality, the origin supreme treasure could increase the strength of voidwalkers. The most necessary thing was to make up for their shortcomings, so that voidwalkers did not have any obvious shortcomings. They could become comprehensive and deal with any situation. As for strength, the most important thing was comprehension of the principle of spacetime. Currently, Lin Feng had no issues comprehending the principle of spacetime. He was already at the 3rd stage and was comprehending the principle of the future. However, he had very few peak origin supreme treasures. This time, he could finally make up for his shortcomings. Among these 5 peak origin supreme treasures, there were offensive origin supreme treasures, such as the blood flame lantern, the myriad layered pagoda, and the 9 layered gloves. They were actually all offensive origin supreme treasures, but their focus was different. In terms of the explosive power in offense, the blood flame lamp was still the strongest. It could unleash wild power in an instant and was unparalleled. The myriad level pagoda mainly suppressed the enemy with power and also had the effect of confinement. Of course, the confinement effect was far less effective than spacetime confinement. The 9 layered gloves provided a huge increase in the frequency of attacks, but to Lin Feng it was actually redundant. As for the levitating war boots, there was no doubt that they were a speed-type origin supreme treasure. More specifically, they could allow voidwalkers to appear and disappear unpredictably during combat and become more agile. The fire god's cape, on the other hand, had both offensive and defensive functions. Its defense was not bad, and its offensive power was also decent. Lin Feng temporarily supplemented some of his shortcomings, but in reality, there were still some legendary origin supreme treasure sets. Those were truly a combination of offense and defense. Even their speed was decent, and could completely make up for all of one's shortcomings. However, origin supreme treasure sets could only be chanced upon by luck. Only those peak voidwalkers might possess some origin supreme treasure sets. It was precisely by relying on some origin supreme treasure sets, in conjunction with their comprehension of the principle of spacetime, that voidwalkers could manage to contend with the most terrifying origin beasts when they reached the top level. However, they could only barely contend with them. Even the strongest voidwalker had to flee when encountering an overlord-level origin beast. Lin Feng did not expect to obtain an origin supreme treasure set. In reality, although the origin supreme treasure set was not bad, even without an origin supreme treasure set, many voidwalkers could still get to the top level. For example, the Spacetime Swordmaster. Lin Feng had never seen the Spacetime Swordmaster, but just a sword aura from him alone was considered by Ruler Starfield to be a trump card, and its power was indeed quite strong. Back then, even Lin Feng's heart palpitated. He was certain that the space-time swordmaster could become a top voidwalker just by relying on his terrifying sword principle, or even a peak sword-type origin supreme treasure. Comprehension of the principle of space-time was the key. Lin Feng saw this point very clearly. Take Ruler Starfield, for instance. Even though he had two peak origin supreme treasures now, as long as he had not comprehended the principle of spacetime, he would not be comparable to a powerful origin beast, and his strength would not increase by much. Hence, while refining the 5 peak origin supreme treasures, Lin Feng began to use the 11 powerful spacetime crystals to deepen his comprehension of the principle of spacetime. Currently, only powerful spacetime crystals might be effective for Lin Feng. Ordinary spacetime crystals were useless for Lin Feng. But, after refining a powerful spacetime crystal, Lin Feng immediately sensed the difference. It was as if he was wandering in the river of spacetime. It was completely different from the river of spacetime in his internal medium kiliocosm. At this moment, Lin Feng had become someone personally experiencing the passage of time. He seemed to be going with the flow of the river of spacetime. It either stopped, sped up, or rewound. In short, all of this felt like personal experience. In reality, Lin Feng already knew the working principle of the spacetime crystal. This was not a spacetime scene that seemed to appear out of nowhere, and could allow one to ascend to the top in a single step. A spacetime crystal could allow one to experience it personally. It was actually the level of comprehension of the principle of spacetime by the cultivator themselves. After a personal experience, they would naturally have different comprehensions. If one could improve further, it would actually be a further improvement in their own realm. It was precisely because of this that spacetime crystals appeared so precious. This was especially the case for powerful spacetime crystals. Compared to ordinary spacetime crystals, the effect was far more than 10 times better. It was at least dozens or even 100 times better. However, this feeling quickly disappeared. One powerful spacetime crystal was far from enough for Lin Feng to break through. In fact, Lin Feng himself was not confident that he could break through. He could only let nature take its course. At least now, Lin Feng already had a direction. What he wanted to comprehend now was the principle of the future. This principle of the future did not mean traveling to the future. That was completely impossible. There were countless possibilities in the future. Which timeline was the future? The principle of the future referred to being able to comprehend the true meaning of the future, receive future images, or see images on a certain future timeline. The principle of spacetime was very complicated and inclusive. The deeper one's comprehension of it became, the more profound they would find it. There was no knowing how difficult it was to completely comprehend the principle of spacetime. Even the current Lin Feng was not confident at all, and did not even have a trace of hope. It was not just Lin Feng. Even among the peak voidwalkers in such a unique environment like the Origin Gate, no one was confident that they could completely comprehend the principle of spacetime and attain eternity. Everyone was a pursuer of principle, and they were all tirelessly pursuing the principle of spacetime. Lin Feng found it very miraculous. It was as if he was really immersed at this moment. All his thoughts were incomparably clear. With his own senses, he seemed to have followed the veins of spacetime, flowing into the river of spacetime bit by bit. He even felt as if he had become a part of the river of spacetime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The powerful spacetime crystals were consumed rapidly. Lin Feng was unwilling to stop at such a critical moment. Hence, the powerful spacetime crystals were consumed very quickly. In an instant, the 11 powerful spacetime crystals were already exhausted. Vaguely, Lin Feng seemed to sense an image. It was hazy and very blurry. He had a strong premonition that it was a scene of the future, a fragment of the future. Without a doubt, Lin Feng had vaguely begun to come into contact with the principle of the future again. Unfortunately, just as Lin Feng was about to understand the principle of the future in greater depth, that miraculous feeling came to an abrupt halt and suddenly disappeared. Huh? It disappeared. Lin Feng opened his eyes. His gaze appeared a little confused. That miraculous state disappeared, and everything he had sensed before naturally disappeared as well. He looked ahead. The 11 powerful spacetime crystals had long been used up. Clearly, it was clearly impossible for Lin Feng to comprehend the principle of the future and enter the fourth stage of the principle of spacetime with just 11 powerful spacetime crystals. However, how could powerful spacetime crystals be so easy to obtain? I wonder how many powerful origin beasts there are in the Celestial Pole Mountain Range? Lin Feng thought of the powerful origin beasts in the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. With Lin Feng's current strength, how could he already be comparable to powerful origin beasts? However, it was hard to say if he would be able to kill it. After all, Lin Feng's forte was his overall strength. In particular, he had obtained all kinds of peak origin supreme treasures, and could unleash the power of peak origin supreme treasures. Only then was he able to ascend to the level of a powerful Voidwalker. However, his medium kiliocosm had not improved accordingly. Hence, if he wanted to deal with a powerful origin beast, it was impossible for Lin Feng to use the medium kiliocosm to trap the powerful origin beast, so he naturally could not use the spacetime prison. Lin Feng was already very certain that the spacetime prison was not a peak origin supreme treasure. The spacetime prison had yet to undergo metamorphosis. Hence, it was not a peak origin supreme treasure. However, in terms of power, there was no doubt that the spacetime prison was stronger than a peak origin supreme treasure. It was just that, in a special environment like the Origin Gate, which naturally suppressed spacetime power, the power of the spacetime prison could not be unleashed. But what if the spacetime prison underwent metamorphosis? Could it manage to withstand the suppression of the spacetime rule in the Origin Gate? Lin Feng did not know. If he wanted to kill a powerful origin beast, having the spacetime prison was naturally the best, and he had the most confidence in it. However, if he just relied on his own strength and the 5 peak origin supreme treasures, while it would not be difficult for him to defeat a powerful origin beast, Lin Feng was not absolutely confident in killing it. I have to give it a try in the end. Lin Feng still decided to make an attempt at the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. Hence, Lin Feng made a prompt decision and immediately bade farewell to Ruler Starfield. He headed to the Celestial Pole Mountain Range alone to make an attempt. Using the Void Vessel, Lin Feng warped directly to the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. Last time, after Lin Feng's sweep at the periphery, the entire Celestial Pole Mountain Range actually seemed much quieter. There was not even a single origin beast at the periphery. However, Lin Feng's target this time was not ordinary origin beasts, but a powerful origin beast. Hence, Lin Feng did not roam the periphery, but rushed straight towards the core area. The deeper he went into the Celestial Pole Mountain Range, the more Lin Feng felt a faint sense of oppression. There was even a faint trace of threat, but he did not stop. He knew that there must be powerful origin beasts in the core area of the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. After walking for an unknown distance, Lin Feng finally entered the core area. He sensed an origin beast. It was very massive, and its aura was dozens or hundreds of times stronger than ordinary origin beasts. Without a doubt, this was a powerful origin beast. I've finally found it. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. However, he did not act rashly. Instead, he carefully checked his surroundings and confirmed that there was only one powerful origin beast nearby. Otherwise, if a second powerful origin beast suddenly appeared, things would be troublesome. Of course, Lin Feng had also learned that generally powerful origin beasts had a territory range. They would not enter the territory of other powerful origin beasts lightly. Only origin beasts that were especially close could appear in 2s and 3s. However, there was undoubtedly only one origin beast in front of him. Lin Feng approached cautiously. At this moment, the origin beast was staying in a valley. It was lying down and seemed to be slumbering, unaware of Lin Feng's approach. Lin Feng did not dare to be careless. Since it was not awake, that would be for the best. In the next moment, Lin Feng suddenly attacked. Blood Flame Lamp. Lin Feng had already refined 5 peak origin supreme treasures. In addition, his comprehension of the principle of spacetime had already reached the 3rd stage, and he could unleash the power of peak origin supreme treasures. Hence, as the Blood Flame Lamp erupted, a terrifying scarlet flame instantly burned in the void, turning into a fiery cloud that burned half the sky into a fiery red. The blood flame lamp was the Origin Supreme Treasure with the strongest explosive power among all the Origin Supreme Treasures. Lin Feng also activated his levitating war boots immediately. Hence, his speed was also extremely fast. Almost the moment the blood flame lamp erupted, he had already arrived in front of this powerful Origin beast. Boom! Terrifying flames covered the Origin beast's body. Could not even react in time, and could only roar in anger. Gore! The Origin beast roared, and its massive body moved. The flames of the blood flame lamp were indeed capable of incinerating everything. It was indeed very powerful, but this powerful Origin beast was even stronger. Even though it was injured, it was not severely injured, just slightly injured. The Origin beast extended its huge claw and struck Lin Feng hard. It was so fast that even with the levitating war boots, it was very difficult for Lin Feng to dodge. Seeing this huge claw, Lin Feng had a sense of déjà vu. That's right. It's that powerful Origin beast that almost killed me last time. A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. He remembered now. The last time he swept through the periphery of the Celestial Pole mountain range. Everything had gone smoothly, but at the last moment, a huge claw suddenly appeared. That claw made Lin Feng's hair stand on end. He even used the void vessel to escape and almost got caught despite it. Once he was grabbed by the claw, only death awaited him. Hence, Lin Feng always remembered the aura of that claw. But now, Lin Feng had finally seen the true owner of this claw, this powerful Origin beast in front of him. Only a powerful Origin beast could unleash such a terrifying strike. The last time Lin Feng faced this claw, he could only escape in a panic. However, this time, Lin Feng did not want to evade it. Even if he wanted to evade it, he could not. He must clash with it head-on. Buzz. In the next moment, the fire god's cape appeared behind Lin Feng, and the myriad-layered pagoda above his head instantly descended. The confinement power was obvious, and the speed of the claw slowed down slightly. Lin Feng also activated the 9-layered gloves to the extreme. Lin Feng shouted and met it head-on. This time, he used all 5 peak Origin Supreme Treasures, unleashing his strongest strike. Boom! The loud noise echoed through the void. Lin Feng's strongest strike instantly shattered the huge claw. No matter how powerful the other party was, it was only a claw. How could it be a match for Lin Feng when he used all his Origin Supreme Treasures? However, the next moment Lin Feng's expression froze.